Oh, hey, you guys want to know a secret? What makes you really tactical? It's not patches, it's your belt. Hey guys, Yoshi from Triple J Armor today. We have our sponsor for this video, Celsius. We're not actually sponsored by Celsius. Today we're going to be talking about belts. Now, all jokes aside, we're going to be answering a lot of questions regarding belts, and then we're going to go through my personal setup on what I'm running right now. That being said, let's jump into what is a belt, why we use it, so on and so forth. Why do we use belts? If you go to the range or you go outdoors and you see these guys walking around with all these magazines and holsters and whatever on them, the way that I personally look at belts is it's a lot like a tool belt for a contractor or someone who works on houses or something like that. It allows me to keep all my tools very handy, close to me on my body, and it makes it easily accessible. It's a tool for me to use in that aspect of just keeping other things with me where I don't have to use my pockets or run back to a table and grab more magazines, grab more ammunition. If I need like a screwdriver or something, I don't have to go through rummaging through my car. I have all that stuff on me. So that's why we use a belt, as well as it gives you a lot of other capabilities, which we can talk about later. So talking about what is a belt, what we're actually talking about is something of the gun belt, battle belt nature. What that allows us to do is carry magazines, have magazine pouches, first aid kits, dump pouches, knives, holsters, you name it, a ton of accessories you can add to these belts. That way, when I go to the range, I don't have to have a ton of stuff to set on a table and just keep going back to that table, taking things off of it. I can put it all on a belt, put the belt on, and go do whatever I'm gonna do for the day and not have to worry so much about moving back and forth from the range to the table to whatever it may be. A lot of indoor ranges have target moving systems, which means that you don't have to walk up and down range to get the correct distance that you want. For people that shoot outdoors, that's usually not the case. You end up having to move to the target. By having a belt allows you to carry a little bit more stuff around without making it cumbersome and also making it inconvenient. I'm gonna go through my belt setup and kind of show you a couple key details and the way that I have it set up, why I have it set up the way I do, and what products I'm using on my belt and accessories. This is my belt, and as you can see, I have a ton of stuff on it. Starting from the actual belt itself, this belt is a Blue Force Gear chalk belt, is what it's called, or CHLK. What that stands for is Combat Hilo Load Kit. I might be getting that wrong, so someone let me know in the comments. It's load rated for, I think, 3,000 to 5,000 pounds, and it's got loops on it for helo retention. Basically, if you're flying in a helicopter, you can lanyard yourself to the helicopter. That way, if you fall out, you're not gonna die. So, one really interesting thing about the Blue Force Gear chalk belt is the contour of it. One thing that I really like about this belt, and I'll show you, this is the inner belt. So this is the belt that goes inside your pant loops, and then the outer belt velcros to this. But if you look at this belt, it's shaped in a U, which when you put this on, it kind of grabs your hips, versus if you have like a traditional style battle belt, something like this, the belt is just straight. So the reason why I find it really comfortable is that it's contoured just like your normal pants belt would be. And I'll show you something. This is my EDC belt that I wear on a day-to-day basis. And if you look at it, it is shaped in a U just like my inner belt is. This allows me to be a lot more comfortable when I'm wearing a belt. I don't have to rely on just straight pressure and cranking that belt down on my hip line. It actually just sits there where it's supposed to be. So it doesn't go anywhere, it's nice and sturdy. So that's one real interesting feature about the chalk belt that you don't really see in the industry. That also allows me to load a lot of weight onto my belt without it starting to sag. It kind of, instead of it sitting like this, and then when you load it with weight, it starts to fall, because it sits like this at an angle, when you load it with weight, it kind of just sits flat on the body. It's really comfortable. I really like my belt. It is a little pricey. I believe at this current time, it's around
200 bucks.
But I find that buy once, cry once. I really like the belt, and it hasn't failed me yet. It also does have legitimate Cobra buckles, so Be wary of that. Some belts do not have legitimate Cobra buckles and they will fail. I have seen it multiple times. So the first thing after the belt buckle is going to be the first loop here. This is the Hilo loop, essentially what you would clip in for your Hilo lanyard. If you're flying in a helicopter or some sort of aerial platform, you'll usually have, if you're exposed anyways, you'll have some sort of retention system. This is what you can use to clip into that, and it's load rated, which is super awesome. Because I don't fly in helicopters very often, I don't really use a Hilo lanyard that often, so I have just a regular carabiner on here with some chem lights. You can use, dangle gloves or whatever you might want to have from this loop, which is nice. But I use a climbing carabiner. This is climbing rated, so in case I need to clip into something for whatever reason, I could do that. But I do have some infrared chem lights here. I have them electrical taped, which the reason why I have it this way is because if I needed to pull this, one really nice thing about having this loop here is I can just take this electrical tape, rip it, I can stick the chem light into the loop one-handed and crack the chem light and then do whatever I need to do with it. If I have a preoccupied hand, I can actually operate these chem lights one-handed, which is nice to have. Moving forward from there, I have the,
Please have a dream, my lord. Oh, okay.
4 pistol mags. Well, at the moment I have 3, but there are 4 pouches here. These pouches are STAC Kaiwis. These are kind of just tried and true. I really like these pouches. They have a good amount of retention, but it's not so much that you have a hard time getting the mags out of. Another nice thing about these pouches is that they have a Kydex insert inside of them, which allows them to keep their form. So when you re-index with one hand, you don't have to pry open a pouch. It holds itself open. Love these. I've had these particular pouches for maybe like 6 or 7 years now. That is the pistol pouches that I'm running. I am running 4, however, I do not run 4 pistol magazines. I run 3, and I run a multi-tool inside of one of these pouches. They actually fit just right. So one really interesting trick with Kydex or plastic is that if you heat it up a little bit, you can bend it. On this last one, I took a blow dryer, heated it up a little bit, bent it, so I actually have a little bit of retention on my multi-tool. And I like having a multi-tool on me because I always am the guy that needs a flathead screwdriver for something, or vice versa. There's a ton of tools that are in this multi-tool that I end up needing all the time. So it's nice to have something on me. That is the pistol magazines that I run and the pouches that I run. Now, so far as the attachment style goes, I am using the What the Fix straps. That's what they're called. They're essentially just rubberized like straps that go through and weave like Molly. I have not had a ton of issues with them yet. However, I have had one that continuously keeps slipping out. That may be just because of the way that I set it up, but if I had to change anything, that's probably the one thing I would change is the attachment style. I would probably go over to something like a Malice clip where it's a little more rigid, it's more plasticky, so I feel it's a little bit more strong and it's not gonna tear. For some reason, I have a fear of this rubber kind of tearing. It seems very strong, but the second it gets nicked, it will tear. To me, that's something that I am concerned about. So again, if I had to change anything on my belt setup, it's gonna be this attachment style. My rifle mag pouches. Again, STAC Kaiwis, same attachment platform, the What the Fix straps. I am running the shorties. So this is something important to note. I find for a belt, you wanna run the short STAC Kaiwis, and then for like something on a chest, you can run the mid ones. I find that the long ones are a little excessive where they cover too much of the magazine to try to get them in and out. So I do like the short STAC Kaiwis for the belt. They work great. I do have these in M81 because God's plaid.
It's based.
Same attachment style, and I do run 2 rifle magazines. Now, I don't always run 2 rifle magazines in the pouches. Sometimes what I'll do is I will take my phone and stick it in this pouch because it works perfectly. In that essence, it's just another carrier for me. I don't always run 2 mags, but if I do, I have the option to do so. If I don't, I can take one out just for weight saving and I can toss my phone in there or whatever it may be. I can just run that mag pouch empty, it doesn't matter. I like being able to have 2 rifle mags over 1. Just allows me to carry more ammunition or have an empty magazine on me. So, next thing on the list is gonna be my dump pouch. Now my dump pouch sits around the kind of left back pocket area. It is offset to the left side, my left side though. And there are a couple of items that I always keep in my dump pouch. So I'll kind of show you what that is. First things first,
Celsius.
I've got some gloves and a face covering. So this is a Condor multi-wrap. I really like these because they're cheap and they work well. I'm not worried about it getting destroyed. And it's fairly warm when it's cold outside. My face gets cold from wind or whatever. This does the job for me. And then I have a pair of pig gloves. I believe these are the Deltas, but these gloves are amazing. They're super thin, but they give you a lot of dexterity, a lot of finger feel, so you can feel your trigger, all your buttons, your whatever it may be, all your controls and your guns. You can actually text with these on, which is super cool. So these always stay in my dump pouch, but the dump pouch itself is the T-Rex Arms dump pouch. Get my Celsius back in there. I'm gonna save this for later. This dump pouch is really nice because it has a leg strap. One thing that I was finding with the other dump pouches that I was trying before is that every time I would put something in there and start running or moving around, it would start flapping. I would lose things out of the pouch, or it would make a lot of noise, or it would hit me in the back of the leg, and it's really annoying. So I do like the fact that this dump pouch attaches to the back of the leg, so it's got this little bungee strap here. It doesn't need to be a lot, so I actually like this. But it holds to my leg, so when I move, the pouch moves with me, instead of it kind of just flapping around in the wind. Another feature I really like about the T-Rex Arms dump pouch is that it's closable. A lot of the dump pouches that I've seen are just open top. They don't really close and you can't contain things inside of it. This does have a Velcro closure, which is super cool. And then if I want to run it open, I can just kind of tuck the flap inside and there's Velcro in there to hold it shut, which is super nice. That way I'm not worried about things flying out of my dump pouch. I was at an event in New Mexico once and I didn't have anywhere to put my water bottle, my big Hydro Flask. So I put it in my dump pouch and guess where I lost it? It's still somewhere in the desert in New Mexico. It's nice to be able to have a dump pouch that you can close so you can move around and not worry about things coming flying out of your dump pouch and losing them. Another thing is that it rolls up really, really small. You can kind of fold it up and roll it up together and then it'll Velcro over itself and it literally tucks up to be about that big. So overall, I love this dump pouch. It's really awesome. It's really, really utilitarian. I love it a lot. Next thing on the list is gonna be my IFAK, or my individual first aid kit. So this is my med pouch. The med pouch that I run is the LBT. I love this IFAK a lot. This is called a blowout kit. So essentially what you're supposed to do, if you look at my belt, this is the top position. So this direction would be the top of it. And I run my IFAK upwards. Now you're supposed to run it upside down. However, I have a lot of friends that are trolls, so they'll run up behind me and pull the tab and all my stuff will fall out. So I run it upright. This IFAK is super awesome. All you have to do is reach in here, kind of get this tab, and I'm not gonna yank super hard, but essentially you just pull this tab out like that, and now you have access to all your medical equipment inside the pouch. Super, super handy. It's quick. Putting it back together is not so much, which is why my friends are mean. I like this pouch a lot. It's got a lot of space in there too. I've got a lot of stuff in here. Chest seals, Israeli bandages, I got trauma shears, NCDs, MPAs, tourniquet. So I've got a lot of stuff in here. You can fit quite a lot of medical equipment inside this pouch and it folds up nicely. Again, that's the LBT IFAK. I like using it a lot. I gotta put this back together.
2 hours later.
Ready? The next thing on my belt is gonna be my knife. This is a controversial point, so I am gonna elaborate on this a little bit. I do have a knife on my kit. I run a belt-mounted knife. This is a Benchmade Adamus, I believe. I've had this particular knife for a very long time. Quick side note for you guys, if you hear any gunfire in the background, just for your information, we are literally right next to our indoor range at Triple J Armory. So we do have an indoor range here. We are during business hours, so there are people shooting right now. I just wanted to give you guys a heads up. It is on a Blade Tech lock, so it just kind of clips onto the belt. No big deal there. But the reason why it's controversial is a lot of people believe there's no need to run a knife on your belt. Not only that, but some people view it as controversial because it can technically be taken away from you. Now, the one thing I will say is that to me, this is not a weapon, at least in its primary function. This is a tool. I use this for cutting things, cutting open boxes, cutting trees. This is a tool for me, flathead screwdriver. But this is a tool. This is not a weapon. Its primary function to me is not a weapon. And a lot of people see that when you have a belt-mounted knife, they're like, oh, that's your secondary to your secondary. To me, it's not. I don't have this on here to use it as a weapon if I need it. It's just there as a tool, and then if I absolutely worst case scenario need it, then it's there. 9 times out of 10, this is a flathead screwdriver. And usually this knife sits just behind, like at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock behind my hip. So it's not really accessible from the front. I have to get back here, pull it out this way, or pull it out this way, and then I have access to the knife. So it's not like someone can take it away from me that easily unless they're behind me. But that's my knife. All right, so I've been waiting for this moment for a really long time, but we're gonna talk about my holster setup. This holster, for some reason, has drawn a lot of controversy. Someone always has to say something about the holster. First things first, what I have attached to the holster and how it's attached to my belt. I am on the Safariland mid-ride, and I'm also on a QLS system. What that is, I'm gonna take this off so you guys can see it. This is the mid-ride, so this is what actually attaches to the belt. And then from there, I have the QLS system on a leg strap. But the QLS system is essentially just a really big buckle for me to attach to my holsters so that I can swap my holsters in and out. I love this system because it allows for modularity of holsters. Maybe someone else is using my belt. Maybe I want to run a different holster for the day. Whatever it may be, it allows me to have quick access to change those things instead of having to take them apart with a screwdriver or something like that. That is the Safariland QLS system on the Safariland mid-ride. This is a T-Rex Arms thigh strap. I know there's an eyelet here for me to run the screw through. I was just too lazy to do it, sorry. Also, I'll run my shot timer on my thigh strap because it allows me to kind of put it on delay, press the button, and then relax my hand so I can get to my draw. The holster that I run is the Surefire RDH Masterfire holster. Let me explain how this holster works first, and then we can kind of get into why I use it. This is a level 2 holster. It has active retention, and essentially, the holster indexes off the light. This is a proprietary Surefire light. This is not a regular X300 that you can kind of just get anywhere. It has specific parts on it that allow me to use this holster with this light. The way that this works is the front of the light goes into the holster and then it retracts into place and is locked now. I cannot yank this gun out of the holster. It's not coming out. There is active retention here. I have to push this thumb release to get the gun out of the holster. Another feature that I really like about this holster is that it does have a retention lock. I can flip this, rotate that over, and it doesn't matter how many times I push this thumb retention, it's not coming out. So if I'm going on a hike and I'm going through some rough terrain, I can throw that retention lock on, it's not going anywhere. Another feature that's really cool about this is that it does have an auto on feature for the light. If I flip this switch here to the on position, usually if I draw, oops, retention lock's on. If I draw the gun out of the holster, it turns on the light for me. There's a little nub in here that turns the light on, and all I have to do to turn it off is just flip that back down. So again, goes in. When you come out of the holster, the light's on, and then when you re-index it back into the holster, it turns the light off for you as well. Talking about why I use this holster in particular. So this is, again, where some controversy came in. Someone said, or a couple people said that the draw stroke is weird. I don't find it to be the case, and technically speaking, all draw strokes are weird unless you train with them. So this is the holster that I train with quite a lot, which means that it's intuitive to me and I'm used to it. Some people say that, oh, well, you gotta like rock it out of the holster. That's not true. If I put my hand on the gun, press the retention, all I have to do is literally come straight up. It's not any different than a Safariland holster. For whoever said that it's gonna mess up your draw stroke, it's my draw stroke, it's my holster, I train with it, so it's not gonna mess up my draw stroke. Another reason why I run this holster is because it allows me to run a suppressor on the gun and still have active retention without having to take the can off. So I can run this suppressor, I can run a light, and have active retention. Now I understand there are some holsters out there that they're passive and they're not bad. I don't have any gripe with them. However, I prefer having the active retention. This is the only holster that I've found on the market that allows me to have active retention and run a suppressor at the same time. I know there's the Cry Clip, which I've used before. I didn't like it. That one wasn't intuitive to me, and it was a little odd. I kept bruising my knuckle. There are like the T-Rex Arms Ragnarok SD holsters. Standard Co makes something that very, very similar to that. Those are passive retention. Again, it's not something that I trust. I would rather have active retention. So again, this is the only holster that I've been able to find on the market that has active retention and allows you to run a suppressor without adjusting your draw stroke. I don't have to clear the suppressor. All I have to do is clear the light. Another reason why I run this holster, and I love it a lot, if you're anything like me, you probably have a couple different handguns. I've got a bunch of Glocks and I've got a SIG and so on and so forth. But what's really awesome about this holster is because it indexes off the light, what that means is I can take this light and put it on just about any other gun and it'll work. This is my Glock 17. We obviously know it works in this holster. So we have the SIG P320 AXG with my light on it. Goes in the holster, just fine. Has retention, comes out just fine. Got the FN LS Edge, 509 LS Edge with my light on it. Goes in there just fine. Springfield XDM with my light on it. Indexes just fine. All the retention in the world, it's not coming out. You could even fit a Kel-Tec CMR 30 in this holster with retention, and it's not going anywhere. It's not coming out, and you can take your Kel-Tec out and then go to work. My point being is that this holster is very versatile. I can put a ton of different pistols, different combination handguns on this light and still be able to use the same holster without having to change it out. All I have to change is this light, which is just a flathead screwdriver. It's really simple to do. The only con to this that I have found in my own personal experience is that this particular holster will not work with staccatos or any 2011 platform as if you don't modify the holster slightly. So I do have a staccato here, and just the very tip of this magazine release button does run into the edge of the holster. So if you were willing to and you had one of these, you could take a Dremel and shave the holster down a little bit, and this would totally work. But so far as I've found, that's the only handgun that will not work with this light, and all it requires is just a little bit of modification. That's why I use this holster. It's very, very easy to use. You can use it on multiple pistols, doesn't matter which pistol it is, 1911, striker fired. I haven't seen anyone run it on like a revolver yet, but I'm sure you could do it. So that's my belt setup, guys. That's what I'm running, the Blue Force Gear chalk belt, all the attachments that we went through, my holster, my knife, my IFAK, my dump pouch, etc., etc., etc. So if you guys like this video, drop a like, comment, subscribe, ring the bell, get notifications from us, and we're gonna start pumping out a lot more content, so hopefully you guys stay tuned. Everyone loves the thigh strap.